What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon, and this is Finally Fishing. I've received a few questions from some of my viewers, and I would like to create a new section on my channel specifically for questions and answers. This is not part of my regular weekly scheduled updates. These uploads will more likely depend on how regularly I get some questions and can do some answering videos for you guys. That being said, let's get to some questions. Alright guys, I received some questions via email. The person asked to please remain anonymous, but I would like to quickly go through some of these questions. Alright, so question 1. I always hear about bass fishing, and catching bass is spoken of a category of its own. What defines the categories in fishing? Is it just by the kind of fish targeted? Why would you want to target that specific fish? Or is it defined by the skills needed or techniques? The short answer for this would quite simply be all of the above. Alright, so when posting on Facebook that I would like to do a Q&A session asking for some questions, I kind of thought people will ask questions like, why am I always using red and purple in my channel? Or why did my parents call me Vernon? I was not expecting these type of questions, but let's see if we can answer them. Okay, so the best way that I can explain this is if you have different layers of fishing, you get to decide how deep the rabbit hole you go, to which level of fishing you want to go down to. In my opinion, the first layer or level would be the difference between fishing and angling. What do I mean by this? Fishing on the one side is where you are focused, trying to find a specific type of fish, targeting that fish using a specific style to try and find that fish. And of course you get skunked if you do not catch that fish. Whereas angling is a much more relaxed approach, where you don't focus that much on the fishing. You are trying to catch fish, throwing out baits and stuff, but at the end of the day, if you don't catch anything, it's no big deal. It's more about the experience and the relaxation of just being out there. So the fishing one is where you are focused, targeting a specific fish, and on the angling, you don't mind if a fish shows up. You are more focused on staying hydrated and having a good time. Below that level, I would say you have freshwater fishing versus saltwater fishing. The level below that, it kind of splits up into, are you fishing ponds, lakes, rivers, creeks, stuff like that. Below that, you have the different styles of fishing. Are you using baits? Are you using lures? Are you using flies? Are you using nets? Doing the noodling thing where you grab the fish with your hands? You have these different styles of fishing. Below that, you have the different techniques. Are you jigging? Are you cranking? What style of lure are you using to try and catch the fish? And the bottom part is you are specifically focusing on a type of fish. So why do people prefer to target one specific type of fish? For instance, in this case, bass. Well, that depends on the type of fish. Bass is actually a quite powerful predatory fish. It's a quite good fight. It involves using a lot of skill and techniques to try and catch these fish. You have to kind of be in the moment and focus on what you're doing to try and catch these fish. It's not just sitting around waiting for something to come and bite your baits. You actually actively have to hunt these fish and try and catch them. That's why a lot of people focus on that. And of course, there are multi-billion-dollar companies because of this. That's why you get bass tournaments and stuff like that. That is why something like bass fishing is seen as a category on its own, because of large amounts of people interested in only doing that. I myself, however, I prefer to be at the top level for the simple reason that for me kind of includes everything below as well. I do like targeting specific fish. I do like using different techniques, but I Really don't care if it's freshwater or saltwater. I just want to catch all fish. And I also, from time to time, do like spending some time with friends and family, not being too focused on catching fish, but just enjoying the time out there as well. All right, so question 2. Where is your all-time favorite fishing spot if you consider all the places you've ever been fishing across the world? Now, I need to explain that I am quite lucky in the sense that I have actually been to quite a few countries in the world. However, I've only fished 3 countries, being the USA, where I currently am. I fished in Italy a bit, and of course in South Africa I did some fishing. But to answer your question about my all-time favorite fishing spot, that is actually kind of impossible to do. It's kind of like asking which child is your favorite child. You might actually like one child more than the other, but you will never be able to pick a favorite because all fishing spots are great in their own way. I cannot single out one above the other. I would like to pretty much fish all of them all the time. Okay, question 3. What risks in terms of parasites and bacteria are involved in handling, cleaning, and eating freshwater fish? I've done a few online ecology courses, as well as I do know quite a few people in the microbiology world. But the only thing I've learned out of this is that I do not know anything. I don't think I am qualified to answer this question, to be honest, but I can give you my thoughts on it. All right, so in my opinion, you are more likely to get food poisoning from something like eating tacos rather than getting it from freshwater fish. If the fish is prepared and cooked correctly, there's virtually no chance of getting any serious bacteria or parasites in the meat of the fish or something like that. I don't think the bacteria and parasites is something to be that concerned about. I think rather you should focus on the quality of the water that you are fishing, the quality of the water, the amount of pollution in the water. I think that's going to be a lot bigger factor in whether this fish is good for you to eat or not. These fish tend to swallow and absorb toxins and plastic and all sorts of things in the water that they live in. I'm not talking about natural things like if the water is muddy, that's kind of inevitable to happen in any body of water. So I don't think that's something to worry about. I'm talking about any urban runoff. I'm talking about more man-made stuff like if there's a layer of oil on the water, if you can see it looking like a rainbow on top of the water, something like that, that might not be the best place for you to try and catch fish to eat. I know there are certain places where you tend to get this blue-green algae growing. That is sometimes a good indication that that water is not the safest water, as there might be some dangerous contaminants in that water. However, you have to kind of look at the body of water you're fishing and decide for yourself whether you think these fish are safe to eat. A general rule of thumb would be smaller fish or younger fish. Something like a 2-pound carp would have a lot less of these invasive or damaging things in them than a big 12-pounder would have. They've been living in the water for a much shorter time. They wouldn't have absorbed that much of these dangerous pollutants and stuff. So try and keep in mind that eating the younger fish might actually be better for you than going for the big ones. Okay, so question number 4. I recall you catching a terrapin accidentally once. What other non-fish creatures have you caught? Are ducks ever interested in your bait, and how do you avoid attracting them to your lines while fishing? Yes, I have caught some strange things. I think every fisherman at some stage in his life will catch something other than fish. I've caught some, like you mentioned, I've caught the terrapin, I've caught freshwater crabs, I've caught saltwater crabs, I've caught some crawdads. I do know of people that have caught stuff like guinea fowl and have heard stories of other people catching stuff like ducks and stuff like that. I've never caught any birds or anything like that, but it can happen. But most often you will find stuff like aquatic birds are actually pretty good at seeing your line and avoiding your line. They tend to stay away from anglers. They are very good at stealing your baits. Some of the cormorants and moorhens, for instance, they are pretty good at diving down and ripping your baits off without getting hooked. They are good at that, but that doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. However, the birds tend to try and stay away from you. I think the problem is more people. I've had instances where people tend to throw cereal and bread into the water, and this attracts a large amount of birds. I've had a few instances where people throw stuff right next to where you're fishing, not somewhere else in the pond, right next to you, and all these birds flocking together. I've had instances where some birds got caught up in the line and stuff like that. But naturally, birds tend to stay away from fishermen. I think it's only in these extreme cases where people tend to be the problem and not the birds. Okay guys, I don't want these videos to get too long, so I think this is where I'm going to end this little video. I'll keep the rest of the questions and maybe do another video with them. Okay guys, I might sometimes miss some questions in stuff like the comments, so I would like to ask you, if you have any questions that you want to ask me, please feel free to rather send me an email. This way I know that I will get your questions and I can answer your questions. Down in the description part of the video, I will link my email address if you want to send your questions to me. You can also do so via my website, the Finally Fishing website. In the contact part there, you can send me an email from there as well. Please do notify me in your email, however, whether you would like to remain anonymous, but I would like to encourage you guys to not be anonymous, as lots of the questions you guys ask is questions that a lot of the people want to know the answers to. A lot of people are asking these questions, so don't be afraid. Alright, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.